And I can establish that we have a quorum, and can I get an approval for the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Bert,
Aye.
Linda, I'll take you on the second.
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Brooke?
Hi.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Okay, so we can, Jill, you want to discuss that so everybody?
I just got an email from Denise, the chair of the finance committee, and she said that we have until March 4th to turn in our report. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, from what I understand, FinCom has canceled all meetings for February.
I think we had one, but not many. But I'll look at that again while we're talking. Yeah.
It doesn't affect us except for the fact it gives us till March 4th, which is fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, with the delay and everything, I think it makes sense, right?
Right.
You almost
Unfortunately,
don't
the planning board's going ahead with their hearings now.
Are they?
Yeah. It's caught everybody off guard because everybody thought it was going to be later because of that stupid pool article of Fritz's that's screwing up everybody.
Why do they
for
keep
6 months.
doing that? Good Lord.
Because he's not going to give it up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which article is that, guys?
No pools
no
Oh.
pool.
in certain places.
Okay, I would like to go to the quarterly report. And then what I think I'd like to do is I've asked Ann this. When I got this notification from Brian, I asked Ann if we could hold off the meeting on Monday and reschedule for next Friday because there's still a couple of meetings that have to go on-site visits. So she was gonna check. And so instead of us being rushed till Monday, it would be next Friday that the meeting would be. So, Ann, did you have any luck with Erica?
She is in a class, I think, and she did respond, but she said she would have to look when she's out of the class that she's taking.
I don't know any other boards that meet on a Friday, so it should be pretty good.
Okay. See, I was waiting to ask everybody. Brooke, what's the conflict?
I have conflicts until around noon. That Friday morning is booked up for me, so I could start later.
Okay, so you cut out a little bit there. So if I'm correct, you said that you are booked until noon?
Correct.
So everybody else, if we asked Erica for like 1 o'clock, does that work for anybody on Friday?
Is that the 20?
The
Ninth?
29th.
Yeah, I'm fine.
That's fine.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Okay, so Ann, will you just ask Erica that for me, please?
Sure.
So what are we looking at objectively? 1 o'clock on that day?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I'll be right
Thank
back.
you. I don't know if
How,
I'm not sure if it's my internet or something. I keep getting that there's a poor signal, so it could be my internet. And if so, I'm sorry, guys.
That happened to
I'm
me
gonna do
last
my
week.
very best here.
That happens all the
Dorothy,
time.
how much time should I block off that day, do you think?
Okay, I
hear me?
totally lost what you asked. I'm thinking you said, how much time should I block off?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I would say 2 hours.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, did you say thumbs up for the 2 hours? My connection is really bad, everybody.
Yes, thumbs up.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Bert, can you do me a favor and talk to me and see if it's my connection or if it's Brooks?
I can hear you, Dorothy, fine. But
Okay,
I
got
can
it.
hear everybody fine. There's no interruption on my end. So my guess is if you're getting the message, it's your internet. Because sometimes that happens to me when I'm at home. It'll say poor connection or something like that. So
Right, I just keep losing Brooke.
I was losing her too, Dorothy.
Oh, okay.
not, but I haven't lost her yet.
Okay, good.
Mine does that too. Randomly, I haven't had it in weeks, but then of course, when it's something important, I get an unstable connection. So
Okay.
just the way it goes with Comcast.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Welcome.
Sorry to be late.
That's okay.
We'll see you, John.
Good to be seen, not viewed.
We are just discussing that the FinCom committee has moved our date till March. So we are looking at rescheduling, instead of doing next Monday's meeting, doing it next Friday, so all interviews can be done before we go into deliberations with all of the groups. Okay, would that work for you from 1 to 3 on next Friday, if it's okay with Erica?
It's all right with me.
Okay, fabulous. So we'll, Ann will let us all know on that. So I'd like to go over the quarterly reports. Rachel, I'm just going to say this to you. I find the hospital one, that was pretty hard to download, but I don't, could you just explain a part of it to me, please? On the quarterly for the hospitals?
I'll see if I can open it. And
It's pretty
potentially
hard to
try.
open.
Give me a minute. Oh, my quarterly reports. On file, Rachel. All right. So exhibit B and C. Okay. Let's see if I can potentially answer your question. I'm going to share my screen so other people can see it too.
You're so good at this.
Okay. All right, what is your question? Well, that's just this part is probably where your question lies, correct?
Correct. We didn't get a budget breakdown, but behavioral health, ambulatory transport. First of all, I'm finding it pretty hard. I mean, but
the
anyway.
way the report is written doesn't ask to break out the dollars.
Oh, it doesn't.
No, because it just says number of clients served, number of hours. So that's all that's being asked to them to break out.
But they usually send us a quarterly report, like a report, a budget breakdown everybody else has with it, and they didn't send one, which would tell me what.
We could probably request one. And this should be the second, correct? This indicates the first quarter.
Right, but this one, they just, this is what was sent to Ann on the quarterly reports.
Okay, and if you do not mind, I never received the first, I don't believe. So everything that I got was whatever was second quarter, but we're probably gonna need clarification because this is checked off as first. And the first was due October 12th. So we should have already received that. If this should indicate second, maybe that was just an error on her part filling that form out. But we do not have it listed here to break out the dollar amount, but we could request an updated budget.
Yeah, can we just get that?
Yeah.
It looks like the most services they gave
Like
were.
others have done that, like Health Imperatives did provide a breakout to accompany their report, but it doesn't seem that they have done so.
Yeah, it looks like almost a lot of them have. But I find it interesting, everybody, that our biggest thing is in the healthcare access. The number that they, the most clients is there.
Mm-hmm.
um, anywhere. So before we do that one, can we get that? Can we get this clarified as to what quarter it actually goes to?
Sure. Do you want me to ask him for it right now? Oh, wait, until after the meeting.
I think it can wait till after the meeting so you can, right, Rachel?
Yeah. And I think part of the reason, if you see how your award was, the 211,123.33, it's
Mhm.
broken out by mostly individuals, is pretty much what you're paying for. You're not paying per service, and that's how they request their grant. If they had requested their grant like they did, so the ambulance is the only one that's a service listed with a dollar amount, everybody else is personnel. So if they had listed, $50,000 for healthcare access insurance assistance, we could list a dollar amount there to try to tie back how much money was applied to there. But it's sort of hard to do that because not only now are they asking for it. So the way that you can maybe back it out is the staff hours to support services is the way we tried to tie the two together.
Uh-huh.
So if it was, I believe that's a 45.875 hours to do the 197, 293 calls and such and such. So ultimately the dollar amount would be whatever, that might be a sixth, the 46.875 hours equates out to in terms of an hourly rate. But of course, as we know, the social worker versus the counselor versus admin assistant is probably very different hourly rates. So that might also not be how they track it, and they might not even be able to tell us that. So that might be a question for them, and it might be helpful then to ask in some form if there's a way to kind of help get a dollar amount attached to whatever the hours or per service is, so that we could on Exhibit C for whatever grant, if you provide them with a grant for the next coming cycle, this would look a little differently.
Okay, I think we did get a breakdown later on the salaries of everybody. They sent it to us separately.
Yeah, we have their salaries. It's just that 46.875. Was it all admin support who did those? Was it the social worker who's probably a higher rate who did those? So it's sort of hard to kind of tie their request of the 52,000 to here. So, and what some have done is the services they provide, they're listing all the services, even if it's above and beyond the dollar amount of the contract. They're just giving you all the services performed, which makes sense because it would probably be hard for some agencies to divide that out. And some of them just take the 211,123 and divide it into quarters. They could request all the money right up front, but they would still be required to submit Exhibit C regardless every single quarter. They just would submit the invoice with $0. Other agencies do it by utilization because that's how they manage and track it. So if they can track it easier, then they might be a little higher one quarter and a little lower in another. So those are the type of things when we're trying to set up the contracts, one, consistency, but two, to also make it make sense in a way for what the grant is to what the reporting is that you need to see. So that's helpful to know in terms of what you might be asking them so that we could maybe alter what the Exhibit C might look like for each of these agencies. I think what we have tried to do, and I'm not entirely sure exactly how it worked last cycle with the prior human service director, but I know in the past what I've tried to done is take those at least minimum exhibits and provide them to the group, but it's usually not, the CRC usually isn't meeting by the time we're establishing these because we wait till town meeting and then we try to get them once the allocation is approved by the warrant article, then we get the contracts onto the select board agenda. So that's usually done between May and June. So it's ready by July 1 and the CRC normally hasn't been meeting then. So if that's something that you might want to look at and change so that you're seeing these and they make sense to you guys in terms of what the contract exhibits look like, in terms of what the reporting is prior to it going to the agencies for review and the select board for approval, that's something else that you can certainly decide.
It might be good so that we have a better understanding as they come in, that we can read them more fluently, all of them, and you know, that they're all basically on the same idea. Okay. Thanks.
And so like you could see like health imperatives. There's obviously like there's how much they're asking for, looks to be about a quarter to quarter, and then theirs is very similar, but they do have a cost listed.
I have a black screen, so I'm not sure whether
Oh, it says remove the window away from the shared. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe, oh, it's because this is the one I'm
Okay, now
sharing.
it's back.
So this one, so you can see with like health imperatives, we are able, based on how they're tracking and how we've communicated with them and how they report, that they have been able to say, here's the clients, here's the staff hours, here's the cost that we're utilizing for the grant right now for those. So I don't know if that's something the hospital could add that says under staff hours, that says personnel cost, because that's ultimately what we're paying for. While these are supplies that are listed, not personnel cost either. So that's another difference. So the number of clients served, obviously the 232, it probably cost them a lot more in personnel costs than 17,253. That was just the cost of the supplies to do that service. So they also don't provide the personnel breakdown. So that I just don't know if that's something the agencies can even do in terms of what you're looking for.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And now that you had health impaired, oh wait, Brooke, do you have a question?
No, it's just that the hospital's asking us to pay for individuals, and health imperatives is asking us to pay for a program that it has both like supply costs and personnel costs, right? So if you break it down by program, that's one thing, but the hospital is asking for money by personnel and then reporting by program. They just don't match.
Yeah, it doesn't match. Plus, we don't know. We gave a certain amount of money for ambulatory services. It would be good to have a breakdown on the ambulatory services and what they're actually costing.
Well, it's about $9,000 a person. I mean, that's last year. I think it was about the same. Well, last year was 12 clients, right? And we gave them about $100,000. I think this year they're asking for 110.
Right.
And
but the 12, with what they have written there, the 12 clients, that's in their first quarter. Are we talking 9,000? So this is a quarter. We would like to sort of know what it is. Do you understand?
yeah, but we should ask them that, because last year, I remember this, believe me, it was $10,000 a person. That's what I remember from it. It's just an expensive, service.
I get that.
That's
But
what I meant.
if they've done the behavioral health ambulatory transport and they've already done 12 clients, is there going to be anything again?
Are there any more? Yeah.
Right.
So that might be the one area that we could have, and I don't know why, but I'm unable to open back up the NCH quarterly report, even though I just opened it. But that might be the one area that we can actually request a cost specifically applied, because it is a service and they could probably definitely tell us that. But there might be a way to alter the Exhibit C with the hospital, so that maybe they are still reporting the services and how many clients, but then there's another section that actually indicates the hours per the personnel breakdown that they're applying that 52,000 or whatever dollar amount they're requiring the grant be applied against.
Yeah, it seems to me they have to be able to find a way to report out what we funded as opposed to what's convenient for them. And if it's inconvenient to report out what we funded, then they should make the request in a way that they can report it by service instead of by personnel
Yeah, we've redone this one.
We've,
with quite a
yeah,
few
we've
times.
gone back and forth with them many times.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's probably about 4 years, 4 cycles or so that
Right.
I've seen or been involved where they've requested changes. We've gone back and forth, and this is sort of where we settled on. But if there is a
Okay.
way to keep improving it, I mean, that's what we do. So,
Great.
and it seems like their reporting and their data collection might be better than it was in the past. And have a little bit more of a tracking of that. So maybe they are able to provide us with data that they couldn't do 3 or 4 years ago. I'll be
Hey,
sure we talk with them about it.
Rachel, I think we lost Anne.
No, you didn't.
Oh, she's there.
Okay, sorry.
She's
on my
just a
screen, I
big black screen.
Yeah, I wish.
Okay,
I'm
Anne,
here.
sorry, but I don't see anything for you at all, so.
I'm
Okay,
town
great.
committee 3.
You're what?
I'm town committee 3.
Okay, it's not showing up on mine, but that's fine. It's
Oh,
just showing up on
yep.
my screen. So now that so we'll get that one brought to us in a better condition. I noticed that we didn't get one from, in the quarterly reports, I didn't get a Safe Places one,
Oh, let me check.
and we didn't have South Coast or Cape Mediation, correct? I didn't see.
South Coast, definitely not.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna check a Safe Place.
I didn't see it in the ones that you sent me, but maybe I missed it somewhere. I will
Was
take-
Small Friends in
Yeah,
there?
I have Artists Association and Health Imperatives, Martha's Vineyard Community Services, Health Imperatives, Interfaith, and Nantucket Cottage Hospital. So we would be missing South Coast Legal Services, Fairwinds,
Small friend.
Small Friends
Small Friends. I think that's it. I think
and
there's
Elder
9.
Services. Elder
Thank you.
Services.
Did we fund Small Friends last year?
Yes.
No, we had a Safe Place Alliance. We don't have ASAP.
We don't have ASAPs either. So there are a few
So-
in the quarterly report.
Okay, ASA, Elder Services, Legal Services.
Oh, it was the year before we. Okay.
Ain't mediation either, right? No?
No,
Nope.
they said that at the beginning. Yeah, they weren't in there.
We're missing several. And South Coast and sometimes, usually Elder Services mail theirs.
Do you think, I wonder if somebody sends something to Taylor's email, what would it say?
That it's no longer active and to contact somebody else.
Okay. No, I'm just wondering if they sent them just
I don't know if it
automatically.
says me or what, but I know it says somebody else.
I'm just wondering if they sent them to Taylor's email and then just didn't even pay attention to the pop-up message. But I will call them all after
Thank
the
you,
meeting.
Ann.
Or
And
just
just
reach out.
remind them the deadline was January 11th and just ask if they had sent it to a no longer active email, and maybe remind them to send them to, at this point, it's probably easier to send them to you
Right.
rather than me or Jericho.
Okay.
And why don't you just send out a joint email with it?
Joint email.
So you don't have to make all those phone calls. You said call.
Yeah, I'm gonna just send an email. Yeah.
Just making sure. Okay, so let's start on these. How about Martha's Vineyard Community Service? Does anybody have any questions on that one? She gave us such a brief description of the services.
I don't know what's to ask. I mean,
I was about to say the description is.
it seems we get a lot for the money, whatever.
Yeah, she does.
No travel expenses, but they seem to have adapted.
Yeah, I agree. She's very good at that. Anybody else? Linda, any questions? Linda?
No
Okay,
questions.
okay. Bert,
No question.
Jill?
No, I think I'm okay for now. Sorry.
Okay. Did you have any questions about it?
Well, like I'm going through some old emails now. I'm looking at some of the stuff that Ann sent. Like you sent something from 2018. Like why is that relevant? I'm confused about some of the information I'm getting. I know I'm new, so forgive me, but to me, this again, I really want to know the services they're providing, and you know, I think you're getting to the bottom of it. I guess I'm just not really following all this. And for example, what Rachel just went over, you're saying that was a quarterly report, but that was the numbers that were in the grant. Yeah.
So the quarterly reports that we're getting right now are for FY21 grant. And part of the CRC rule is to receive those, review those, and that's part of the
Okay.
accountability. And then if for some reason, as has happened sometimes in the past, an agency that asks for money, if they're not reporting or not showing how they're using the funding appropriately, that might impact future grant implications. So that's ultimately why you're receiving that information, is to ask those questions to make sure that what you had awarded as a grant in the past, whether you were on the board or not. So there might not be a lot of input that you might have, except for potential questions that might follow that, except for board members who were there when the original grant was done. But that might be something, because sometimes that has impacted us in terms, or sorry, you, in terms of how you're approving the next fiscal year, which right now you're in FY22. For instance, Dorothy brought up that we noticed that one agency was providing some of the grant funding for a service that was not approved.
Right.
And that had to be adjusted, and that was not discovered unless these were reviewed, and then it was clarified in the next grant cycle. So that's sort of what this is. It's like a check and balance for the prior years.
Okay.
So what is your question?
Mine?
It sounds like you have a question. You're a concern there that you were.
No, I'm just trying to follow along. Like I said, we're getting some information. I just like to see a service per, like when we do the school budget, it's so clear, like, you know what the services are, how much they are per person. And that's kind of what's nice about this. I feel like maybe there's a way just to put the number of people served and the dollar amount. And so the hospital clarification, the one earlier was good. I guess I'm fine, Dorothy. I'm fine. I got a lot going on. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. John, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, so I think, are we supposed to, Rachel, what do you want us to do? Make a motion? I think we need to make a motion, somebody, to approve
I'm
this.
sorry, can you say that again?
You want us to make a motion to approve this, correct?
You don't need a motion. It's just a review of the quarterly budgets. But if you have follow-up questions or issues or anything that you noted, then that just directs us as the staff to follow up with the agencies and make sure. But we don't need a vote or a motion either.
Okay, great. So I don't think there were any questions on that one. Let's do the Art Association. Oh, Jill? Jill, did you have a question? Okay.
No, I got to recuse on AAN.
Okay. Art Association. Anybody have any questions?
Does that fall in line? Obviously I wasn't here. Does the per student cost fall in line with what was expected from the original grant?
Actually, no.
Does
Good
anyone know?
question. It's actually $10 more because of the cost of COVID and and the loss that they're having in classes. So it's actually it was $340 that they had planned, and they billed us for $350, but that pretty much is pretty close to what it is. It's their adjustment because of COVID.
Okay, so ultimately they'll just have to serve fewer people with the grant dollars they got because their per person cost has gone up.
Right, I think
Theoretically,
it was
right.
one total person
Mhm.
with the
Okay.
whole cost.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions on that one? Rachel?
I have a question, but something just popped in my head and I don't want to completely derail the progress you're making right now.
Mhm.
I am wondering if it makes sense that once you guys have done your deliberations and have divided out what funding per agency,
Mhm.
if you would recommend or somebody would make a motion that one individual from this board works with me, it would be the human service person, but I'll probably be doing it to develop the exhibit B and C's together so that it also gets to what you guys want for a board and agency based on what your motions are and on our level. And then the whole board can review them.
Sounds great.
So you can do that later, but I didn't want to lose that thought because they will run out of my mind and not come back sometimes. Thank you.
It's so noted.
Join the club.
You're not old enough to be in that club, Rachel. Just writing it down.
I'm the dean of that club.
You know, age doesn't give you the right to be the dean of that club. Okay, let's go to health imperatives. We have any questions on the health imperatives?
Nope.
I heard a no from Linda.
No.
No.
I just had one.
Sure.
Because when I met with them, which Linda and I had a great visit, she thought the money went to their salaries.
Mhm.
And then today it looks like in the sheet I'm looking at, it goes to other things as well. I mean, she wasn't positive, so that was fine. I didn't expect her to know everything that it was going towards, but
Okay, I can go over that with you.
yeah. And I wanted to see if, again, in the services for sexual and health reproductive services, is that, I think I asked you if that covered the transgender shots and you said no, and I just wanted to know if that was for sure.
Okay, I got it verified.
Great.
And so in the medical and pharmacy breakdown on this,
Yeah.
it actually pays for, guys, I'm just looking at my phone. So, it pays for antibiotics, lab tests, pap smear tests. Birth control is paid by the state of Massachusetts for folks who are uninsured. So
Yep.
basically it pays for, and blood labs. So blood labs, pap smears, antibiotics creams, that's what comes in under medical pharmacy.
Great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And underneath the program support, just so everybody knows, that is office fees such as post office, their medical telephone, things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Jill? I was hoping when I saw that email that I reached out for the right question.
Oh,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I feel like when I look at that cost per person, it just seems like excellent value too. It's just me.
I think it's a great program. Brooke?
So I have a question about the costs related to relocation. And were they granted funds toward relocation? And they made this note that they're
Well, originally, so I'll explain, I think I can explain it pretty well. Originally, we've all gone and looked at the building, and now I think that Jill has seen it. Have you been there, Brooke?
I have.
Okay, so the facility is pretty small for what they provide. They were looking for somewhere to be able to move to. And truth be told, there is no facility that they can bring up to par. They had looked at the one on Bartlett Road, but then because the hospital was going to let go of it, but then the hospital didn't. To move, and I think there was a request to Taylor at the beginning that they knew that wasn't going to happen, that they were going to need it towards the services.
They think they have another place to move in concert with the food pantry. So that came up when Jill and I were there.
Yeah.
So that's not off the table yet. They're working through the owner of the current owner of the property now.
Right.
But Linda, my understanding is like, they're gonna have to move.
At some point when they want to rip the buildings down, but that's not right this second yet because they haven't been back to the planning board to get a final on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and Fairwinds has a 2-year renewal on their lease.
2 years.
Starting-
Well, that's why we've been very adamant about their capital improvement program over the few years, because we were concerned we had heard what the hospital's plan was, and they didn't have a backup plan. And so that's pretty much what they took over about, I would say, Rachel, right, 3 years ago, they started working on that when we started bringing it up as a major concern of ours as to where they would go.
About right, yeah.
So I think both agencies have noted, I know that last year, Health Imperatives spent a good part of the year looking at different facilities and trying to work something out.
Just a little off topic to what we're working on today, but I also know a safe place has 18 months before they have to move. So I think this is an issue the community might want to address, the precarious nature of housing for our human services agencies, just as a thought, anyway.
Well, just so you know, before some of you even got here, I was involved with human services complex. We had a whole design, everything else has got to be at least 10 years ago, across from the Housing Authority. Land Bank now owns it, wants to put a park in there. But we had a whole complex designed with affordable house, 16 unit, I think, of affordable housing, where all the human services could go, all of them. And that was kiboshed. Town meeting was supportive of it, but then we lost that land. So if there's any land, somewhere in the Waite Drive, Tacoma, anything in there the town still has left, or over at the water company, we can revisit. We had a design and everything already. We can revisit a human services complex where every single human service could go in there. So that's not out of the realm of possibility. We've already been down the road, had all the costs and everything else. So it can always be resurrected if we can find a place to go, piece of land to build a place on.
Am I correct that I don't want to go too off of subject here, but if I'm correct, they spent about $1 million on the
CPC we gave them a lot of money. I was the liaison on that, as well as on their advisory board, and we gave them a lot of money to do it with the architect. We met several times, probably over a 2-year period. And then I don't know what happened, but something happened, and that was the end of it. So obviously CPC couldn't recoup the money for the architecture design and all that. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. We couldn't revisit this whole thing again if we had a place to go, for sure.
Yeah, they do have, I know that they did have a plan in place. They were going to have a social service office there,
Everybody was going in there. Every single one on Nantucket was going in there.
Wait, John Baloch has something to say. John,
Well, I was on the board of the organization that was trying to do that. And we actually had somebody in the wings who was ready to put up a substantial amount of money I know we ran into the problem of there being a historic Wampanoag site on the
Yeah.
land,
Oh, horrible.
which was a real monkey wrench in the sense that they then had to redesign around that and negotiate to have a small museum for the artifacts that were going to be there. I don't remember exactly why it kind of died with a whimper. And
The land bank wanted the property and that's where it went.
Why aren't we cutting
I
down
believe the issue
our
was a
site?
certain amount of money was spent out of the
Effective, like,
CPC
today,
funding and there was
with
a
a
time
disclosure
limit,
on it.
but I am not sure. I know I have the information somewhere and it might actually exist in the HS office because I had looked into this way back when.
But, like,
And
so let
because
me
of
ask you, like, more
identified
question.
species
Like,
or
you
artifacts
said,
or something on the
Gateway is
site,
open,
it
like, I can
created
go on
an
Gateway
issue
right now
and then
and sign up.
the
I
money
just can't
was
schedule an
switched
appointment.
back to the CPC or
We
completely
never got
used
the money
up.
back.
It might have been used up then.
So-
Yeah.
I can try to look for the history of it,
Right.
but the funding
But so
ultimately
maybe
no
this is
longer
a
existed and
question for
the
Jason.
land went to the
Can
land bank.
People who
Yeah,
register-
I brought the guy in that was gonna contribute the 5 million or whatever it was. Don was gonna contribute at that point. And then he got tired of waiting and then he got tired of the amount of money we spent on that architect who sucked out most of that money from the CPC and we never got any of it back. So it died death and then Land Bank wanted it anyway as part of the green belt. So that's where that went. But it's not, he won't come back in, but it's not to say that I couldn't find someone else to come back in. But we just need a piece of land that is ours and nobody's gonna yank it out from underneath us.
So I have an idea for this. The first floor of the fire station property becomes our human services place with housing above it.
Too public. People
But
don't wanna
anyway,
know
we
who's
can,
coming in
this
and out
is
of the
for
building.
another day. Yeah, it's for another day. I'm sorry, I sent us off the rails, but it's
Yes, you
Something that-
did, Brooke.
my apologies.
But it is
for
something
vaccine.
that needs to be discussed by somebody, by the town, by somebody to get this back on track.
It's on my radar.
Well, let's get back on track here.
Yeah, not to,
Yeah, but
the
we-
select board has been meeting about a facilities master plan. This has come up in their second workshop. And I can say I could potentially have a side conversation with anybody if they want to understand the status and the, just, I guess, the status of the building at 131 Pleasant. But I'm not sure that's a
Okay.
good option.
The stat,
Okay.
the status of what, the building at 131?
The old fire station,
The
131
old fire
Pleasant Street.
I would love to hear the status of that when you have a chance.
Well, they're doing something over there right now about a foundation for that god awful traveling classroom.
It's on the ground now.
Yeah, and I don't think the HDC had anything to do with that because they didn't want it sitting there
They
permanently.
approved it.
Ugh.
All the documents are on the website for the
I
town.
hate that
There's
building.
a webpage that
It's
Okay.
migrated
indicates
all
it.
over the island.
Okay,
Okay.
guys, love
Come
you
on, let's
all.
stay-
but
let's
we're
stay
on
way
track
off
here.
subject. I'm gonna bring everybody back into subject here. We can have a discussion on this on a later date if wanted. Sorry. Interfaith Council. My only request on the Interfaith Council again is that, Anne, did we send out that email asking them to make corrections to that budget?
To Janice?
Yeah, to Janice. I think we discussed it at the last meeting about them, the correcting the documents.
Some of the columns didn't match up.
Yeah, they don't match up on the quarterly report either. So if we can just get them, and if she needs us to sit down and show her what we're talking about, I think we can send her something that shows her what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty.
I would really appreciate that. So any discussion on that, on this one, except for that? I think we need to have the paperwork properly done. Other than that, is there any discussions on it?
No.
No,
Bill? And Linda, I got a no on you?
Nope.
Okay, John, and I think I got a no on you, correct?
you did get a no, but I mumbled it.
And
And I'll
Bert,
say it out loud for the record, no.
yeah. And Bert, you said no, correct?
I said no too. Right
Okay.
along with John.
Yeah, I could hear you really well. You guys amaze me. I think that that's all the ones that we had in, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, right? Okay. So what I would love to do now is have Jill and Linda talk to us first about their visit to Health Imperatives.
Well, that was like my third time there. So Jill, you want to take it? Because that was your first time.
Sure. I mean, I really enjoyed it. We talked to Sunny. Linda really gave me a great education about the history of the building. And Sunny was actually talking about how great the building had been. I guess they used to have to use that space for some other groups met there. And now they're not. So they really have much more room to get around and stay socially distanced. But, you know, they're making the most of that space for the time being. And yeah, it was helpful. It was good to learn how they reach out to people and how people come to them. And yeah, I thought it was really helpful for me just to know exactly what they do.
Okay, did you leave there with any questions or any, if you think?
No, like I said, I asked her about the funding and, you know, what are we funding? What are we paying for? And she said it was really salaries. And, you know, I know that it really probably does, a lot of it does boil down to actual people and human beings. So, yeah, it was good for me anyway.
They also, we talked about the outreach, how they're getting out there, and they are really doing a fantastic job of outreach into the schools finally and all over the place. So they've expanded some of their programs and had to eliminate some, obviously face-to-face with young mothers and stuff, but they seem to be expanding incrementally and as their outreach improves, and it's a very, very well-run, very successful enterprise. It's one of our shining stars, frankly.
Well, the other thing that came across to me, and I know Sunny's name through, you know, because everyone knows her, and I think that that really is what grabs me, that she's able to, you know, she's got her tentacles all over the island and people know her and they're comfortable going to her. And so that really was great for me to see her where she works and how excited she is about her job and passionate about it. And that really spoke to me.
Yeah, plus I explained to Jill, and when we were talking about the massive turnover they've had in the last 40 years. And she's in there for the long haul. She's young, she's energetic, she's dedicated. And so I don't have any worries about the fact that it's going to keep going.
I
And
agree.
they've got Portuguese and Spanish in there now, if they need it.
Well, they think they have people that work for them full time that speak Spanish, correct? Or part time, but they're employees of theirs.
Yeah, and they can tap into that anytime they need to.
Yeah, and how is their WIC programs and stuff going?
That we spent a lot of time talking about WIC because Joe wasn't necessarily familiar with the WIC, and WIC is still rolling big time.
Cool.
And I'm glad they have control of it because they really do apply a lot of energy to that.
Yeah, I think from my experience over the years, first of all, Julie Kehoe is extremely dynamic and, you know, just amazing at her job and has brought to Health Imperatives that drive and been put underneath her people that are, she's very good at delegating and delegating to the right people to do the right thing while overseeing it all. And I've seen such a change since when she took over. It's just an unbelievable. And when she brought Sunny in, you know, Sunny was that last shining thing they needed to make that program really what it was. They've got great, you know, their nurse practitioners, amazing people that go to her, absolutely love her. They feel that she really cares about them.
And I think she's a midwife also.
Sunny is, yes, Sunny definitely is. She's delivered a lot
Doula.
of, I've been there for a lot of them.
Yeah, she's a doula.
Yeah.
So,
It's just, I'm telling you, of all the organizations we fund, besides Safe Place, this is, Meals on Wheels. This is a terrific entity for human services, and they get a lot of bang for that buck in there.
Yeah, they do. I agree. Brooke, do you have anything to comment? Question?
I think when they did their presentation, and as I talked to Sunny, that what's startling to me is the percentage of our population that is uninsured or underinsured relative to the state and the nation. We have a really high uninsured population, which makes this program even more imperative. Pun intended, I guess.
Very good.
So.
Yes, I think it's very true. And I know there are a lot of local kids from all demographics that use it, whose families can't afford the insurance. So, from every single demographic on the island, it's used and vital, really vital. Bert, did you have any questions for them?
But health imperatives? No.
Yes, sir. No?
No.
John?
No, just glad to, couldn't go there this year, but glad to hear that it still impresses Jill as a new visitor the same way it impressed me in the couple of years that you and I did it together.
Yeah. It's cool, isn't it? Brooke, any questions or
Yeah.
comments? Okay. Then can I ask that Bert, can you talk to us about Small Friends, please?
Yeah, I went over their license for 69 students. The current enrollment is 28 students. The reason is they can't take more students because they cannot find adequate staff to take on the extra students. They lose their, they don't want to go to less qualified people. Our 15,000, the question I asked was, now that you're not open till 5:30, you're only open till I think 4 o'clock now. What happens to our money? And he said, well, they still use the money for their snacks. It doesn't cover the cost of the afternoon snack, and it still goes to the extra hour now. But the extra hour now, I think, is between 3 and 4 instead of 4 and 5, or what it used to be before, because they don't stay open as long.
Is the cost higher for them because there are not as many students during that time, Bert?
Yeah, it has to be because they don't have the same income.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was the same problem they had last year. They weren't at full capacity because they didn't have enough teaching staff to allow them to take on extra students. And she just refuses to dilute the quality of the people that she wants to have.
And is that because when you say last year, that had to do with our last fiscal year when COVID happened and teachers had to leave and then they were allowed to reopen?
No, the year before that, when there was no COVID. They still.
I thought they presented to us that they were at 69%, 69 capacity, because we asked them about being able to expand because they were at full capacity.
They couldn't expand because they couldn't get any qualified staff with the credentials that she wanted them to have.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for everybody. So the year before COVID, before March of this year, Small Friends had a legal capacity of 69 students. They were at 69 students. If I'm correct, they had 29 students on the waiting list.
Yes.
Now they have 100 students on the waiting list.
Oh, boy.
So,
And 29 students enrolled?
29.
They have 28 active students right now. They have a capacity of having 69, the license for 69. They
Right.
only have 28.
How many stay till 4 o'clock?
Yes.
How many stay till 4? All 28?
No, most of them leave between 3 and 3:30.
So what's our money going towards?
The teachers that stay for the last hour, and for the snacks that they they provide them every day.
We never paid for the whole program. We subsidized the program, but we never paid for the whole program. So they were still using their own funds to pick up whatever we didn't cover.
And they told me they're still doing that. Our money doesn't cover what it costs them.
And sometimes this is the meal for some of these kids to get through.
Yeah, but you do realize it's $535 a child, a student, for what they have now? I assume they're not going to increase their enrollment.
Well, their hope is we should go back on this from the presentation they gave us. I'm going to just go with the information I know from the presentation. Bert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody else can step in if they heard something else. I think as of till March, they had a full enrollment of 69 students, and they shut down. When they reopened, a lot of the teachers didn't feel comfortable coming back. So with the licensed qualified teachers, they were able to get back. They were, when they first talked to us, I think they were at 25. So they've added 3 kids. They were, but 28 enrollment at this moment with the licensed teachers qualified to watch them. Their hope is that after COVID, they will be able to reopen to the 69 once they are able to get teachers and everything in place.
Everybody gets the shots and whatnot. And that, remember, this money goes from July 1. So hopefully next fiscal year, they'll be in full enrollment.
Right, because it's now this year's fiscal, they're into our fiscal year, last year's grant right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the COVID also in the younger ages where the nurseries where they have the cribs and so forth, with the 6-foot social distancing in their small rooms, I think they cut the number of cribs they had in half because they could not space them 6 feet apart in the room to meet the guidelines from the state.
So Jill, can I ask you something? If it's 500, you're saying $535 a student for the year?
I'm just taking 15,000 and I'm dividing by 28. And last year, you're saying take 15,000 divided by 69. So it went from 217 to like $535. I mean, they have, so, but if you're saying they'll be at full capacity in July, I guess we have to take their word for it.
Well, I don't think that the tuition's right.
Their plan is to reach full capacity once they have the licensed people back in and that COVID is better under control. So I don't think anybody can project what's going to happen as far as enrollment in a program like that for the next fiscal year. I think that's asking a lot with what's going on.
Yeah.
But
clearly it's an essential service because people have nowhere to go right now. And if they go back to work, that's going to make life a little even more difficult. Where are you going to put the kids? I mean, they've always had a waiting list, but this is insane.
Yeah.
Dorothy, Brooke has a question.
One thing is that will be interesting is we still have another quarterly, we'll have another chance to see as this progresses before July 1st too.
Okay.
Brooke has a question there. Hey, Brooke.
They list that the salaries for operating the extended day program when it's at full capacity is $117,000. So they're only requesting less than 13% of that payroll cost for the extended day program.
Yeah, but is the 117 that was till 5 o'clock? Now they're till 4 o'clock, right?
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying even the ask is it's a small portion of the cost of running the program. So.
No, I know, but we still have to look at everything. We don't have you can't fund everything at maximum capacity that I'm aware of. So I'm just asking the questions.
No,
One thing.
So good report, Big Burke. Thank you, because that's interesting.
Well, one thing I'd like to say is I don't think everyone pays $520. I think a lot of people pay less than that. They have I don't know if it's a scholarship program or a sliding scale or whatever it is.
Oh, I think the 525 or 535 she was talking about are 15,000. And dividing it between where it would go. And of that 15,000, some of it just goes to the snack program itself. not to
Yeah,
the end of the day.
food,
Some
food
of
costs.
I think it is just a snack program, isn't it?
No, I think it defers some of the cost of the,
Of the
Extended
staffing, the staffing is an hour less a day. So the snack part might stay the same, but paying per person for a teacher is 1 hour less per day. Or two
Okay.
teachers, or
For the
however
moment,
many they
yes.
have.
For the moment, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I mean.
Hopefully things will get back to normal.
I know, it's terrible.
So I guess maybe one way to ask a question is, with the uncertainty of COVID, right? Are we okay with being asked to pay for 13% of a program that may operate on a smaller scale, and therefore we would be contributing a larger percentage per student if the COVID situation extends into the next fiscal year? You know, are we, I mean, are we okay with that, given that their corresponding revenues from tuition are also down? So
I'm okay with that because what I don't want to do is have everything go back up to full strength and they get caught short not being able to fund the program at all or up to what they need to fund it for. We're all dealing with this uncertainty here. I think all of the people that have applied to us are dealing with the same uncertainty.
Oh, I agree. And it's not like it's a lot amount of money. You know what might be helpful is, do they have a commitment from these teachers that once they're vaccinated, they will come back? Is there that kind of commitment? Did you get a feeling for that, Bert, on your visit?
No, I didn't. We never got into that. I got into what the money was going for. And our money didn't pay we didn't fully fund the snack and the extra hour out of our 15,000. They still had to pay the difference out of their own pockets.
They always operate on the edge out there.
Yeah.
because of the
Oh, no,
need.
I know. I love that fundraiser they do in the summer. It's wonderful. And they couldn't do that this year, I don't think.
Yeah, and that was a big problem as well. So it's
Yeah.
impacted some of these
virtually,
places
they
pretty
actually
bad.
said, if everybody remembers, they told us they did it virtually.
Yeah, we had that discussion with a member last year, Dorothy, about their fundraising and how to maximize it and not spend so much money on a tent. You know, we had a whole long discussion with them about their fundraising.
I like that fundraiser. Linda, don't shut that down.
No, it's just cost them almost as much money
I-
to run it as it does to they don't get as much money from it as you think they do. And that was
Oh,
the
I'm sure they
problem.
don't. I'm sure they don't. I'm on the board of the AAN. It's the same thing. We have a huge gala and it's very
What do you
similar.
get from it? Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
what they told us, if I can stand to be corrected, was in their presentation that they did it online and they realized that the online people did really well with online fundraising this year. And I think that they said that to us, that they did fairly well. So
Well,
what
I
it
can
goes
vouch,
down
I can
to-
vouch for that, just as an aside from anybody who comes in and asking for money on fundraisers. We didn't have, obviously, I've done 14 December Delights for that school now, run all the auctions. And this year, obviously, we couldn't have December Delight. So we set a record last year at 45 grand, I think, a little bit more. Well, this year I brought a lot of stuff in. We did about 12 grand on our pop-up and we did $35,000 on our online auction. So we equaled what we did last year with half as much stuff, no vendors in the gym and online and at the pop-up at the Seagrow we ran for 3 weeks. Unreal, these online things.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people feel, and I totally agree, we had the same experience at AAN. It was amazing. I was so impressed. But what we kind of talk about now was that maybe just for 1 year? Do people really want to do that the second year? And we don't know. I don't know the answer. Maybe people are perfectly happy to keep operating that way. But with
Well,
the
people
number,
want, people want December Delight. They want December Delight. They want to go to the high school.
That's right.
Well, the thing is, people shopped online because they're trapped at home. So when they're
Yeah.
not trapped at home anymore, the appeal of an online fundraiser may wane.
Yeah.
Okay, can we get back to just, sorry, I'm gonna get us a little bit back on course here. Jill, when I looked at everything, I think it works out to, if we take the 28 students that are at Small Friends, it costs them 68 cents a day per child, which works out to $19.04 if I'm correct. which if you take it and figure it, I figured it with like 300 and maybe, I think it was 310. I'm sorry, I don't know what I just did. It worked out to about $6,000 in snacks, just if they were to stay at where they're at right now in just snack costs. Okay.
Snack the 6,000 of the 15.
It would be if you took the 28 students right now, just so you know, and that's so it was at, look, 1904 a day with the 28 students. I think I took out some for weekends and maybe figured 330 or something into 330 days or something.
Okay.
And it worked out to $6,000. So I think that what they look for, if I'm correct, is they look at us for about 12,000 of that snack program a year. And then the rest is given towards the extended day hours. So I'm not sure that
So,
yeah, go on.
so the request is extended day program 12,000, snack program 3,000
I think so.
of the 15,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
No, I don't think so. Is that it?
that's what I'm reading in the
I'm just looking at it.
request.
Extended day is shorter.
Oh, snack program 3, extended day 12. So they're asking us for half the cost of the snack program for 28. I mean, if we're talking 28 students.
Remember, their income is cut in a third. They're down a third on their income. So it's all going to average, it's all going to work itself out.
Right.
Yes, so they were asking us for 1/4 of their snack program cost, which becomes a half when their census gets cut in half, right? So, and they were asking us for 20, sorry.
Oh, guys, I hate to say this. Hank Aaron just passed away.
What?
Hank Aaron
Oh, no.
popped up on my computer.
Oh,
So they're asking us for 10% of the salaries for extended day, which goes to 20% if their census gets cut in half on that. So it's a rough calculation. So basically, if their census doesn't go up, our contribution as a percentage of the program cost doubles. Any increase in census brings that percentage lower and lower toward the original ask based on full census.
And
So the
that's
question is, can we live with that? I think it's pretty hard to apply COVID circumstances to a fiscal year that's going to go, starts July 1st. That's my, and I'm not saying we don't need to pair some programs, right? We obviously have only certain dollars to spend, but the COVID situation is going to come to an end, and I don't want to be applying the circumstances of COVID for the logic for the following year too much, if we can help it.
That's what I was trying to say. Good one. Good.
So can you just go over that one more time, Brooke? I'm sorry. Of the $381,944 it cost them
So in their
to
proposal,
run the extended day program, it cost them, they say, $381,944. Am I correct in what I'm reading? And then 12,000 would then put it at 3% of the program.
okay, I was looking at they wrote an alternate way to calculate partial costs with extended day is the staff it requires. So I was just looking at the staffing portion of it. So sorry, on the following page of their, it was a nice, my eye is drawn to charts rather than
I was looking
paragraphs.
I was looking at under 3 statement of costs where they said the total cost of running that program.
Yeah, but either way, like you divide the census in half, our percentage of what it costs them doubles. So, just as a, I mean, if they're serving half the kids and their cost goes in half and we're giving them the same amount of money, our percentage of that cost goes up,
Yeah, of course. it does.
doubles. Yeah,
Oh.
no matter what way you slice it or what portion you're looking at it as a percentage. So,
So we go
So-
from 3% to like 10%, but we're not hoping that's what we're hoping that they're able to go back to full capacity because that's what the
Right.
community needs.
Right.
Okay. Hey, Bert, did you have anything else to tell us about Small Friends?
No, you know, that at some point they're gonna have to do some fundraising for the maintenance of their building. They went with that bamboo flooring in all their rooms, and the bamboo wears out. It's not as durable as some of these other materials. So, you know, at some point they know it's getting kind of shabby looking. So at some point they're gonna have to replace their flooring, and I don't know how they plan on raising the money for it, but they're aware of their problem. And their ongoing problem is that they made a bad mistake a number of years ago in selling the adjacent property, which they could have used for expansion of housing of staff or whatever, but they were in financial crisis and they had to try to stay alive.
Hey, this might be something you all could answer for me. Can they get any WIC money?
Mm-mm.
They can't.
No, WIC money goes to individuals, not to.
Or what about free and reduced lunch? There.
Mm-mm.
And Linda, can you explain why they couldn't get free and reduced lunch? Just asking if you could
A
explain.
private nonprofit.
Okay.
Free and reduced lunch, I believe, is a federal program. It runs
Yeah,
through the
federal
states and it's to the public schools.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted an explanation of it for us. Okay. Hey, Brooke and Bert, again.
I'll let Brooke run with this one. She spent more time with Janice than I did that day.
Well, why don't you give us a summary of what you did, and then we'll go to Brooke so she can give us the full thing.
Well, we went into the facility there, which is very small, and they're using part of the terminal sitting area out in front now to have tables to make up their packages and whatnot.
Oh, good.
The problem is that shortly when the season opens again, they're going to lose that space. They're going to have problems they need to find a place where they can put all the food together and store it and box it up if they have to keep delivering it and whatnot.
And so when is the terminal actually reopening? Like April?
It usually opens by Daffodil Festival, I think, yeah.
Well, they just
Yeah.
canceled Daffy, but Bert, did they say something about the fact that the terminal was actually not open last year because of COVID? Everybody had to do it outside?
No, we never got into that. Did you mention that at all, Brooke, with them? I didn't.
Well, I mean, I think that's why they got access to the space.
Yeah.
Because
And we don't know if it's going to
They
be
don't
open
have-
this summer either. That was
They-
my question.
they do know that it is planned to be reopened. They're negotiating on a date, but
Okay.
I didn't write down the date, but it's sooner than they need it to be.
All right, because Daffy just got canceled, I think, yesterday or today.
I canceled yesterday. Or the day before yesterday, actually. Got it
Yeah.
canceled. Okay. Brooke.
Okay, so the first thing I asked was as a follow-up to that screenshot we got from Facebook. And I showed them the pictures, and they said a lot of the food, most of the food in those boxes were out of Salvation Army food distribution that went to many different nonprofit organizations on Nantucket, even not food related at all, during the original shutdown, when everyone was stuck at home. First off, it can't be determined the source, that the food pantry was the source of the food that was trying to be rehomed. And I think more interesting to me was Yeshi Palmo's description of the philosophy of the food pantry industry, which is because food is a level one and very, basic human need, that the food pantry industry, while trying very hard to minimize any kind of fraud or duplication of access to resources as much as possible, that they generally choose to err on the side of providing food because the mistake of letting someone go hungry is more harmful than the loss if it is a duplicated resource to someone due to some kind of misrepresentation or fraud. So I thought that was interesting. They said, they talked to us about how they minimize the risk of duplication. And they also reminded us that any individual address in Nantucket may house many households. And as a housing advocate, I'm very much aware of how a 4-bedroom house can have 4 entire families that do not share food resources, and even multiple generations within one family living in a household may not share food resources. And so they apply as separate households to the food pantry. And so they're very aware. I mean, Nantucket's a small place, and the food pantry is very aware of multiple families living in homes, and they do a lot of follow-up questions. And she told me of a little girl who came to pick up food who blurted out that her whole family lives in a bedroom, and the mom was like shushing her because she was embarrassed to share that information. And so I just thought that was really interesting in terms of their awareness of how people live here and the provision of food. And their process right now is that people are not delivered food they haven't requested, which is different from that Salvation Army box and distribution. There is a menu of options that are available that's presented to clients of the food pantry, and they place an order, which is then packed by staff. And if they're able to pick it up, they come to the bus station, the bus station side, like the Christopher's parking lot side, and the staff delivers it to their vehicle. If they're unable to come, either because they don't have transportation, they're a shut-in, or they are quarantining due to COVID or isolating, they have volunteers delivering those orders of groceries. So in terms of that food that was being offered on Nantucket consignments, that was sort of an anomaly of stuff that people just got delivered to them that may or may not be useful to them or their families. I mean, we've all raised kids who won't eat certain kinds of cereals. So anyway, that's the follow-up on that question. And they are very concerned about where they're going to go. They need more space.
When is their contract up, Brooke? Sorry.
Linda, do you know? It's soon, but the problem is they lose the bus terminal, and the number of people they're serving is so large. When they get pushed back into the other space, it's just not enough space for them to operate out of. So the problem on location is imminent. Even and I don't, Dorothy, I didn't write it down. I'm sorry. But they are negotiating, as Linda said. They have been looking at different places to relocate. So, but those are going to cost them more money. Remain leases them that space for, I think, $1 a year.
Yeah,
so they're going to have a cost associated with their relocation as well.
It's very cheap, isn't it?
Hmm?
It's very cheap.
Yeah, it's basically zero cost to them. So, I'm trying to think what else we talked about, again, the COVID and the COVID fundraising. Jill, sort of, I was pursuing some of the questions that you raised at our last meeting. And most of the funds that they've been granted, well, almost in their entirety, the funds that they've been granted must be allocated to the provision of services. So money for food, rental assistance, utility payments. So their ask for us is their operating costs, and they expect that the surge in clients that they serve, particularly in the food pantry and in the rental assistance, while it will never go back to pre-COVID levels, because the community is much more aware that they are in existence and that particularly the rental assistance program is out there. And because of our seasonal economy and the number of people who are unemployed for 3 months or so in the winter, a lot of those families who didn't know about these resources now know, and they expect them to see them on a regular basis through our cyclical seasonal economy. So, because I was asking, why the increase in your ask for this year? What's the rationale for it? And she expects the demand for services will be sustained at a higher rate, and therefore their administrative and payroll costs will be at a higher rate post-COVID.
So this is to me, yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, that's a good report, Brooke. I guess that's kind of the opposite of what we're saying about small friends, right? We're saying things are going back to normal for small friends. Things are not going back to normal for food pantry. That's why I think when we do evaluate everything, COVID, it gets a little confusing. And I have to think about that for a while about how I want to evaluate it personally. So that's really helpful. And I have no doubt your information is right. That people will just keep going there until it's that comfort level for them where they feel like things are back to normal, whatever that means.
Well,
Well,
plus
normal.
plus the housing stock is
Hold on,
decreased.
Linda, let
Yep.
Brooke answer that, and then you can talk. Brooke, go ahead
Yep.
and answer, please.
Yeah, so I think, it's interesting because small friends has a capacity, right? So their normal is quantifiable, their future normal, whereas the food pantry's future normal, I should say, is capped at small friends, where as these resources normal.
But I don't know. I don't know if those I don't know that those teachers are going back to work. That's what
No, but as a maximum.
Oh yeah, no, they have a
Yeah.
certain number of
Yeah.
people for sure. But
Yeah.
the food pantry has a lot more access to resources than small friends, let's say. I think
True.
Act Saves was $370,000. The community foundation, how much has that been? I know that the person who put together Act Saves told me they had paid out $250,000 in rental assistance alone.
Right, but Jill, you have to remember
Right.
that has to go for rental assistance. It can't
No, I
pay
know.
for the administrative. Yeah. So that's
No, that was a good
that's the
clarification. I'm just saying
Yeah.
they do the CPC, that goes for rental assistance, but that probably goes to administration too, right, Linda?
Oh, absolutely. We require, actually CPC
they do.
requires it to go to administrative to make sure it continues to run.
All of it or just a part of it?
Well, whatever they put in for, they usually break it down for us. But
Okay.
it's required that they have, for us to give them money, it's required that they have staff. And just so you know, on the staff level, I do a lot of the investigating as to who owns a piece of property. The funding for rental assistance actually goes to the property owner and not whoever's leasing the house and not whoever is subleasing.
Yeah, I know.
She scopes out every single one of the owners, which is a lot of them, one guy I work for, so it's easy for me to find.
Right.
But she also, a lot of the housing stock, the prices have gone up because the housing stock has contracted. So rentals have gone up, and if you're out of work on top of because of COVID and you're down to one income or no income, which is why this has gone absolutely nutso this year.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question that just popped in my head, Linda?
Yeah.
Just asking you, you said that you do the research for them, so should you be voting on this stuff if you're doing? the
No, I don't
research?
get paid for it. She just asked me because she can't get into the building department. I can. And what she asked me for, and she doesn't know how to work the GIS program online. I said I'd teach her at some point, but it's with COVID. I can't really do it over online for her. She sends me an address. I look up the owner and I send it to her. So it's stuff that's available to people who know how to work the internet, but she can't figure out the GIS thing when it
Yeah.
works.
That's pretty simple, the GSI.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, it takes me 5 minutes. It'll take her an hour.
Yeah,
Hey, guys, I'm sorry to do this, but I've got to get on another call now. Can we talk about this one later? I mean, Dorothy, you're the chair, whatever you want to do. I'm sorry.
so what we'll do is, Brooke has a comment to make. Jill, we will bring this back up when you're back, and I think Bert has a comment to make. But you have to leave right at this second.
I can wait for Brooke's comment if that's okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
And
Please,
Bert
please.
too. And Bert too.
and then Bert too, and then we'll table this conversation to a later date when you can come back with your questions. Brooke?
so I want to respond to Jill and then that information from Linda that CPC money can be used for administrative costs for the rental assistance program. That in their request this year is $41,000 for the rental assistance program. And so given that the CPC increased their grant substantially, therefore there's more money available for the administration of the rental assistance program. I just want to make
Yeah.
that, hold that placeholder, Jill, in your conversation about access to other resources.
Okay, great.
So-
Bert?
Yeah, most of their food comes from two places. The food bank in Boston, which delivers it to Howard, so they have to go over and pick it up, and the Stop and Shop here. And their problem is, they pointed out to us last year, is the Steamship Authority. They have to, just like the truckers do here, once a year, make all their reservations for the year and pay for that stuff, or pay for how much the steamship requires. So that was another big problem and part of their budget. The
Okay.
transportation to the mainland with a person and a truck and back and forth.
Right.
And I
Stop
got
and
it
Shop's
for
here
them
all
for
the time
free.
though. What is that? I don't get that. Stop and Shop's here all the time. They have regular ferry reservation.
Yeah, what they have to do,
Bert, it's.
they have to do, what they have to do, Jill, is the food that they don't get from the food pantry in Boston, the food bank, they have to go and buy at Stop and Shop.
No, she's talking about the Steamship Authority. So they have to send a van over to Harwich to pick
Yes,
up the food that comes.
yes.
That's where their Steamship Authority costs come in.
Gotcha.
Once a week, the Boston Food Bank sends a trailer truck down to Howard loaded with food for all the towns on the Cape, what their allotment's going to be. And their van, they have a refrigerated van now that goes over, and they, on the steamship in the morning, pick up the food and then get on a boat to come back that same day.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I got them free boat rides for several years. I got them free from Steamship for quite a while. And I think they're now charging them. I don't know if they're charging them full boat though.
They aren't charging him full boat because they made a contract with all these nonprofits that were trying to use had to go into the boat. So they only had a certain amount of money they could fund towards it. So I think they've worked out an equation with everybody.
Okay.
But
good.
Jill, we're going to let you go. We'll find out
Thank
more
you. I'm
information.
sorry.
And it's okay because we're going to talk to Artists Association. You don't have any say anyway.
Perfect. Bye, guys. Have a great
Hi,
weekend.
Jill.
Thanks for
Bye.
the information. It was good talk.
Okay, so Ann and I, hi Ann, I just saw your head for the first time in a while.
It's me.
Linda and I went to the Artists Association yesterday and talked with Courtney Bridges. And I'll let Linda start and then I'll fill in, Linda, where you leave off.
Last year, I believe, was our first year, and it was sort of an unknown how it was going to actually work or whether it was going to work. And we were very pleased that it's actually working, and even better than we could have anticipated that this program works, the basically therapy through art. And they've had, because of COVID, they've been able to go ahead and have these programs, obviously socially distanced. They just have more programs with less people in each session. And they are getting nurses, firefighters, other first responders in their art and their pottery classes. And some of them, it's the only release that they can get. And it's worked very effectively for these guys. And we discussed opening it up, going down to the salt marsh, having a conversation with Laura so we can put it in our newsletter down there. If they can, because during the day, they're pretty empty. So they have all this open, beautifully lit space that maybe seniors who love these kinds of things would be able to have classes there themselves. They have the island ride that can get them there, and it's easier for some of them to drive during the daytime. So they would better utilize the facility and continue to offer this for mental health and socialization for people that are right now pretty much shut in. They know no holidays with their families and all that stuff. So I was particularly interested in opening it up to that because I'm on the Council on Aging. So I think they're open to anything. And as I said, it's very successful. I was just so pleased.
Yeah, I think what we saw is they adapted, like Linda was saying, they adapted all their programs. The whole facility has been adapted, and they quickly adapted. I think one of the benefits that they have is that art during COVID has really had a resurge with people. They were talking to us about, they had one fireman. They're actually going to send us. I requested that they send us this. They do surveys about why people got in touch. And one of the firemen, I'm sorry.
Firefighter.
Yeah. Actually said that the process in doing it actually brought him to tears. And I think what we saw is this year, I think what we've seen, not only COVID, but for our community, there has been some, we've had fires that we've never seen before with tragedies that are far beyond what we're used to, and within a very few days. And I think with the idea that we discussed the fact that unlike a lot of people, they have the camaraderie within the firehouse. It's also an awful lot because beyond just the fires that they've had to go to, they've also been going to deal with people with COVID. And then on top of that, they're the other patients. So having to be on the front line, it's interesting that we had firefighters going in there, and that and actually it wasn't pottery they took painting. It was painting, and he got to express.
He was painting.
Yeah. But I did ask questions in regards to how about, it's not only for front line workers, right? And so they had two mothers that came in that it was their first chance since having babies that they were like around anybody. And they were dealing with a lot of stress at home and understanding and how it actually impacted their lives and what they were doing. And we talked about them also reaching out, not only to, they were worried about the seniors as far as being exposure. And yet when they have the building open and the way it's set up, it's actually very senior friendly, very handicap friendly as well. And the access to it, we really pushed, Linda and I, for them to look at offering these services, because I think that demographic, personally, what I see is we see a lot of people represented here. But one of the things that over the years, and I'm not sure when I get to John, I'm not sure about elder services this year, but one of the things that's always been a concern for them is that there is really no mental health program for seniors, because a lot of the programs don't accept Medicaid and so Medicare or Medicaid. And I know that Fairwinds has been trying at it, but there isn't really a lot. So that was always a concern that came to us from elder services about mental health issues of their clients or of the seniors. And our hope is that if they can reach out, and even if they can take 2 or 3 seniors in, or even one, they're going to make a difference in somebody's life, and in people that these sources aren't necessarily available to. So it's great to see it go to frontline workers. This grant isn't for children. This grant is actually specifically for adults in the community. We also suggested that they reach out to the hospital, to Health Imperatives, who works with moms after, and they have a lot of moms in there, and with Dr. Kame, because she is, of course, the only OBGYN we have on the island, and Briar Path, and try to get the resources, let people know. They told us that Maggie Murray, Maggie Maury, has been a huge advocate for the program. And when as soon as they got the funding, she started reaching out to people and getting it. And one of them did speak to us about she did speak to us, if I'm correct, Linda, about somebody coming from the school saying the principal sent out a email to everybody about the program being available. And
Yeah,
so,
and I think it was not just the school, it was a couple of other places, I think she mentioned. So they've
Oh, yeah.
done some
Matt-
outreach. Oh, the hospital union put it out,
yeah,
and the firefighters put it out. And then, yeah, the school put it out.
the school put it out, but that's because of Maggie Murray doing her outreach work with it.
Yeah.
So it looks, I mean, very impressive on how they were able to, take into consideration everything. They've made it very COVID safe. They've had no cases of anybody related to the staff there with it. And the program seems to be doing what we hoped it would. The idea that in funding it, and I know sometimes I say this and it's silly, but if you can affect one person to the point we did that firefighter, and then it actually let that firefighter get to that point, we're doing our job in distributing the money, because it might mean that that firefighter reaches to another firefighter or somebody else completely different and says, look, there's something available. When you're afraid to say, they say on their application that people don't say I've been referred by. They are going to reach out to private healthcare workers as well to talk to them about this program. But a lot of them, the applications, actually, the people talk about how much stress they had been seeing in this last year.
The fact that they kept going, because that's the first question I asked. How did you keep going from March to now? And they also do a lot of online teaching. So they've expanded that.
No, they don't do that much online, because she said it's very hard to do online art.
She did, but she said they are doing some stuff online. And all I could think of was that painter guy that you see on PBS. But she said they were doing some of that. But what they also said is that they also did an online auction this year because they couldn't have their gala. And she said that was very successful. So people came out on all these nonprofits to participate in their online stuff, knowing that some of these people are going to have a hard time, these 501c3s existing next year.
Right. I think the big thing is online art sales quadrupled all over the country. It's people really invested in art because they weren't traveling. Their projected budget versus what they showed us shows their art sales, I think, are 45,000 more than they anticipated. But when they do that, their art sales also, they get a commission on it and the artists get a commission on it. So two people are benefited. They do have, I've looked at this because they have an escrow, they have a tremendous amount of money. But it's also all tied up into different legal fascists as to how it can be used and when it can be used. And they don't have funding for this program. They have a lot of money given to them for funding for youth programs. And they can run youth programs, but they don't have any specific funding in their endowment that allows them to run an adult program. And so that's where this goes. And that's because they came to us because they had no adult funding available to their program. I was impressed. We did ask for a bunch of stuff that when we get it, because I was like looking at administration costs. Wow, that's really high. What are you paying for? Because you already have salaries that are $1.2 million. Can you explain? So they're actually going to send me a breakdown on that, because I really wanted a better breakdown as to where their costs are going. But overall, I would say that I would agree with Linda that our questions that came up last year as to the significance of this program into the human services was answered yesterday, as that it really met a need that was not being met anywhere else. And looks like it opened up a door for people to be able to let those needs, that frustration or that need out, whether it's in a ball of clay or in a painting. So, Brooke, I saw had hand up. Ask the question, Brooke.
So I'm going to guess what you're going to find with administration costs is buildings. They own.
No,
right?
the building is in the rental. I think the administration cost has to do with, she began to break it down for us. I just asked her to send it to us because I think that's actually, they have a building cost in there. It could be electric bills, that kind of
Oh,
cost. Is that what you're talking about?
Occupancy, their building cost?
Occupancy, I believe, is their rent for the building, right? Because they just bought that
Okay.
building a couple of years ago.
So they have the downtown building and the Amelia Drive building, right?
Yes.
So do they own Amelia Drive?
I think
Yes.
they're in a rental. They bought it and they're paying a mortgage on it.
Yeah, but none of this funding goes to that. This funding for this is only for this program.
No, I understand. I'm just curious because once you get into owning a building and maintaining a building, that's what an endowment.
Right, that's what it's for.
It's
Yes,
critical
that's what they're
that you
using
have
it
an
for.
endowment in order to
Keep it going.
be able to maintain the asset.
Yeah, and I believe that's what a lot of it is set up for.
Mhm.
Have you been there, Brooke?
I have been, yes, I was there. My granddaughter has taken clay class twice, and I had the pleasure of bringing her there. And boy, the joy on her face when you talk about clay class. She's 6 years old. Like, I didn't really know. I mean, I know Jason, and I know Courtney through Jason, and so, but I knew I'm not an art person at all, and I have walked by the downtown store a million times, probably went to somebody's art opening, a friend or something, but it's not my area at all, but I love the idea I know the power of art therapy, that I do know.
Yeah,
So.
it's amazing. I just want to share. I don't know if you guys can see that. I forgot you can't. Sorry. I'll send it out. There was a piece of work that a 6-year-old did.
The sailboat.
And I don't think you can see it. I'll send it out. And I was like, totally, I know the 6-year-old isn't in our program, that isn't a part of anything we're doing. But to see that kind of talent happening inside of there was pretty cool.
I'll share my granddaughter's clay elephant with you too.
Okay,
My 6-year-old granddaughter.
Yeah,
I still have my daughters. She did when they were down at the Macy Warehouse, the little gallery. Erin would take pottery when she was like 4, 5, 6 years old. I still have Erin's pottery from the Artists Association from 40 years ago, sitting on the table.
Hey, Linda, not to be outdone, I still have my daughter's bowl that she made in high school that won the state high school art competition in Boston.
There you go.
So there, Linda, I've got one up on you.
Well, Erin's stuff won awards for me because it's still intact and it's still sitting on the damn table.
It's very cute. Very good. I mean, we all know, I think we all have an understanding. I think that when we went into this, Brooke, for us last year, I did a lot of research on where this fit in and how people talk about therapy through the arts and whether there were clinical studies proving its value. And sure enough, there were. This is something they had tried to embark on, but this was really, last year was their first year to really run this program. And I think they more than succeeded in what they were attempting to do. And that is really, when we see that happening, I think it's really cool. When we can actually see something take root and do what this was actually, because this wasn't actually designed, and I hate to bring this up, this was never really designed to continually maintain programs. The CRC, it was actually designed when it first went into place to help start up programs and rooted. But due to circumstances, one of them being where we are located, it seems that it's become a need that they have
Yeah.
this kind of funding available. But this is great when we see something that actually comes to us that's new, that is really substantial. So
They couldn't have done it without us. So I think in all the years I've been involved with CRC and the other entities, this is one of the first ones I've ever seen funded from seed, that they couldn't have done it without us.
right.
That's actually been so successful in just 1 year's time. It's just amazing.
Nice.
Well, I mean, I think it's really cool, and I think that there's an argument to be made for advocating for greater funding for human services across the board. I know there's been a huge jump that you guys are probably super pleased about, and I would argue that that it could be a higher priority than it is.
And we've made that argument.
Well, yeah, Brooke, I think that we have made the argument, but when making the argument, we've been able to present it in the way where we're not attacking, but we are saying, here's the evidence we have, this is the reason we want it.
Yep.
And forth, we've become working partners with the finance, not finance committee as much as the
Select board.
selectmen and the finance director in finding the funding and sustaining it. So
Yep.
we were actually told last year that we wouldn't have this funding this year at this
I
rate.
know.
So for us, we're pretty happy that we had it 1 year and they've kept it up for the next year.
No,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's a much greater commitment. I love it. I just think it's amazing. And the select board and town administration should certainly be applauded for it.
We do, and we let them know it every time in hopes
Yeah.
of more when we have to ask for more.
Yeah.
So, John, did you get to meet with Elder Services?
Well, I did it remotely as it was
Awesome.
intended to be. So on the 13th from 3 to 3:30, I was Zoomed with Jerry Hunt.
Uh-huh.
The program is I have some specifics, but I just, before I go into the specifics, it is operating pretty much the way it has in the past, except for the fact that in prior years before COVID, they were able to go into houses and housebound people that they're serving, which they can no longer do. Jerry told me that for each household that they service, they have a pre-negotiated regime. So in some cases, they go and leave the food packages on the porch, and somebody comes out and it turns out that in some of the houses, which I hadn't really understood before, maybe nobody else did, that some of their clients have as much as 24-hour home care. So the home care person will be the person who will come out and collect it, because some of in those cases, those clients aren't so immobile that they can't come out and get it themselves. I believe she did tell me that there are a couple of situations where people.
Hey, John, we're having a little difficulty, I believe, hearing you. Is anybody else having difficulty?
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Yeah. John, can you turn up maybe the volume on your computer so that we can hear you better?
I can do that if I can figure out where to do it.
Should be down on the right side.
I know, I just have to get it. How about that?
It's
No.
a little better.
I've got it. Well, I'll go all the way. Here we go. That's the highest I can go.
Okay.
No, I think it's your connection.
Yeah, let's just see. Ann, you gotta stop moving papers. I keep hearing you.
Yeah, nobody can make any noise, otherwise we can't hear him at all.
Yeah. Okay, John, go on.
Well, I'll go on and see whether it, can you hear me any better?
A little bit.
Well, I don't know, what, maybe I'm
There
not
it is. That's perfect, right there.
right here. So maybe I haven't speaking to my microphone and I haven't spoken on my microphone before. Is
Very
that
well done.
Oh, that's better.
Much better.
all right? So in any event,
John, repeat what you said about what happens if the person can't physically go to the door, open the door and pick up the food. What happens then?
well, in some cases these people have in-house in-house home care, in
Mhm.
some even 24-hour home care. So the home care person will come to the door.
Okay.
You know, in certain instances, apparently on a negotiated basis, they will go in and put the food somewhere inside the door. In some cases, they actually have to take it in because the person is so immobile that they can't come to the door.
Yeah.
But that is done on a house-by-house basis, predetermined and pre-negotiated both with the deliverer and the recipient, so that the maximum COVID precautions can be taken. It is. She told me, I asked her how their number of volunteers they have. She has more than enough people to make the deliveries, which I was somewhat surprised. She said that there's been absolutely no trouble finding people to make the deliveries.
Nobody's working.
Maybe so, but they're willing to, expose themselves to the risk.
Wow.
In December, she averages for 2020, they've averaged 200 meals per week.
Wow.
In December, her statistic was that they provided 823 meals to 49 people in 46 households.
Wow.
It is the food is still being provided by Kitties, and I didn't get into the subject matter of exactly how that mechanic works in terms of getting it packaged and collecting it, but apparently that is working smoothly, and Kitties is. I think the price. Didn't get a specific price. I should have. I didn't ask for it, but it may have gone up somewhat, partly because
About $1.50 a meal.
of average age of people they service is between 70 and 80. Let's see, what else did I have here? And then she gave just, I asked, well, how about for the day I talked to her, which was the 13th, that she had 43 consumers, of whom 13 had some form of in-house home care. Overall, as a sort of a summary, she said the town money sort of offsets their deficit because this program is, or the deficit of this particular, the Meals on Wheels program, that they do get most of their funding either from state and federal money. And they've had to be, we didn't get into the specifics, but they have state and federal regulations that she has to keep track of, with which they have to perform. Overall, I think as we've all reflected from the past, this program serves a very particular need in the community, and it is doing what we had expected to do. And by and large, from the point of view of the town, you get a lot of bang for your buck.
I would agree with that statement 100%, John.
Yep.
Does anybody have, oh,
I should, may I add one other thing? In Sherry Hunt, you get you get more than $2 for your,
Which is precisely why we've told her she's never retiring.
she said she's still working and she does not, I think she said, she told me her age. I won't reveal that. That's up to her.
I know.
Nice move, John.
I know how old she is.
Well, that's all right, but she said not intending to retire immediately, but I don't know. She still has the same enthusiasm that we all have experienced in the past.
cool. Brooke, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is interesting. This points to what you were talking about earlier about the human services budget, like supporting the increased cost of human services on Nantucket. You know, that this program is state and federal funded, but not to the level that it costs to run it on Nantucket. And so it feels like we're filling a bit of that gap. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yeah, we do. But we don't fill a big one. I don't actually, sorry. I have it written on their thing. So give me 1 second.
Well, while you're looking, what's come up over several years now is that funding for human services up until this year have been cut and cut and cut federally and state. So a lot of people have come to CPC and come to CRC, or it's just because the funding's getting cut all over the place in human services. That may change over the next 4 years, hopefully. But it's been a steady decline for at least 10 to 15 years at state and federal levels, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the cost is, if I'm correct, the cost to running Nantucket's program is $154,700. I think we contribute 12.9% to that running of that budget.
Which probably really is, compared to running the same thing in Hyannis, I suspect a lot of that is the added cost of doing it here.
Of course, because they can't access a lot of the things available to the Cape Meals and Meals program.
Let alone
Well,
food.
I mean, you look at at the financial history of the average cost per meal is $12.57. Only there's a big yellow box at the bottom that says not Nantucket office.
Right,
So-
exactly.
We're at 14 something, I believe, per
No,
month.
19.
We were
19, it went up. I know it went up this
we are
year.
at $19.10, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Believe me, when John Keane took it over some years ago, he's in his second or third contract. When he took it over, the people were not necessarily enamored with the food prior to that. When John Keane took over the food, they were in heaven. So everybody loves the food.
Jerry said they get very few complaints about the food that they are being provided.
yeah, I think they work very hard at that. I understand it's their morning routine down there, and
Yep.
they work extremely hard at meeting all the needs of they have to go by all the nutritional guidelines.
Yeah.
So I think they've done a great job. Anybody have any questions or comments on this one?
Nope.
Okay.
Mhm. Hard choices we got to make, huh?
Yeah, and I think once we hear the rest of the presentation. So, Anne, did we hear anything back from Erica at this point, or is she still in her conference?
Dan, you're muted.
Anne, did you hear me?
Yeah, she sent me an email Friday the 29th, from 1 to 3 is okay, all set.
Okay, so we're gonna cancel Monday's meeting, everybody, and we're gonna go to Fridays.
Now, here's a question for Ann while she's not muted. Jill and I still haven't been over to a safe place. Do we have another date for next week?
I'm going,
Oh, I was supposed to go with you.
okay, I'm going because they didn't get any, and I think it's, hold on, I think it might be today at, hold on a minute.
I can't go today.
And do you remember the time?
Yesterday's email said, how about Monday, 1:25 at 2 p.m.?
Oh, that's it.
That's
2 p.m.
fine.
on Monday.
Yeah,
Boy,
not
see?
today.
I would have been there at 2 p.m. today.
Tell me again what time Monday? What time
2
Monday?
p.m.
2?
And then it says, open to having Dorothy in the office if she is comfortable with that. So,
I don't have a problem with that
okay.
going in.
Did we find a time with ASAP? I'm sorry, I didn't reply early enough yesterday.
I've reached out to them, and when I find out, Brooke, if you could tell me your cell phone number, I will contact you personally.
Oh, perfect. It's 802-296-1420. And I'm assuming that's virtual, right? Because Sue works out of her house?
It could be. Sometimes what actually has happened is I've met them at like the pharmacy or something like that after hours.
Okay.
That's how we normally have done it. We've met them after hours and been able to sit down and talk with them.
Okay.
It just depends, you know, we'll find out what they're comfortable with.
Okay.
I think we'll be talking with somebody from NAMI as well. You know, not just Sue, but maybe a NAMI representative. I know Alan Bell will probably be a part of it because he does,
Okay.
he still does the money end on this end right now.
Okay. All right. As long as we're safe, COVID wise, I'm good.
Yeah, me too. Don't worry. I have to be as well. Okay. I think with that being said, I think we've done well. I'm in a,
When's our next meeting, Dorothy?
our next meeting is next Friday at 1 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Oh, yeah, 1 o'clock, 1 to 3.
1 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Yeah, the meeting Monday is at 2 o'clock.
What time is it? I hear 5 different voices.
1 o'clock to 3.
Is our intention next Friday, Dorothy, to come up with a sort of a game plan, a solution as to who's getting what?
I think what we'll do, Linda, is we'll make our presentations because we still haven't heard really back from Nantucket Cottage Hospital. We need to see their some data from them. And we have Fairwinds, Nantucket Cottage Hospital, a safe place left to go to talk with, and ASAP. So our presentation will be then, and then we can start our deliberations. I see Brooke just put her hand up, so I'm going to answer Brooke's question. Brooke?
So Rachel sent around that spreadsheet, the like sort of the analysis spreadsheet, I guess, that was used a few years ago, that has questions like, does it serve the public? You know, it's sort of a checklist for evaluating the programs. I found that really helpful just in terms of thinking about it. And so anyway, I didn't know whether, I felt like we were kind of all over the place in our deliberations. And as a new person, it would be really helpful to me to sort of have this like criteria to compare one against the other.
Yeah,
I
think that what you saw is that I think in our heads, and maybe our problem was that we didn't think about the newer ones. We already had that criteria in our heads.
Yeah.
Right.
So many times, you know? And so I think that that's sort of become just a part of how we do the process. So when we go through it, I think that's in our thought process. So open to you, if that's how you want to go through it step by step, we're fine with that. But I think when you go into it, after you've read your packets that have been given to you, I think that we sort of are on that way already. We're already thinking that way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's really helpful because I was trying to wrap my head around how do we decide one over the other? How do we rate, sort of evaluate them against each other? Because ultimately that's what we have to do, is figure out which one is prioritized over the other, or what parts of each are prioritized over the other. And
Right.
so I just found that really helpful. So
Yeah, and one of the bigger things we also take into play when we're doing it has been their transparency and their financial responsibility. You know, whether we keep running into the same problems on finances, whether they're actually really transparent and telling us everything that's out there. Have we missed something? That's why
Yeah.
a lot of this comes about and how we go through the process. So yeah.
mhm.
Okay, if anybody doesn't have any comment, I know that Bert has something he wants to say.
I do.
Yeah.
What do I want to say?
I
gonna
thought
guess-
you said something about adjourning, but I must have missed it.
Oh, excuse me, I fell asleep. Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Bert,
Yes, aye.
Brooke,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Dorothy, aye. Okay, thanks everybody. Ann, thank you again so very much.
This was great today, you guys. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
You too. So everybody stay safe and
Stay
healthy.
safe. Good,
Bye,
Matt.
John. Nice seeing you, John.
Nice to be seen.